The sun cast long, golden rays across the suburban streets of Crestwood, making the afternoon seem warm and inviting. But inside the white, Victorian house on Elm Street, the air was thick with tension. Jackson Grayson sat at the kitchen table, staring at the glossy wedding magazine in front of him, trying to ignore the rising anxiety in his chest. His stepmother, Claire, had been relentless about the wedding plans for weeks. Her enthusiasm for the event was matched only by her insistence on Jackson's involvement. She had approached him once more this afternoon, her voice a mix of urgency and charm. "Jackson, darling," Claire said, her voice honeyed with false sweetness as she stepped into the room, clutching a stack of receipts and a shimmering bridal magazine. "I need to talk to you about something important." Jackson looked up from the magazine, forcing a smile. "Sure, Claire. What's up?" Claire sat down across from him, her eyes glistening with a mix of excitement and worry. "As you know, Emily's wedding is just around the corner. It's going to be the event of the year, and I need your help. The costs have gone over the budget I initially planned for, and well, we've hit a bit of a financial snag." Jackson's brow furrowed. "I thought you and Dad had everything covered. I didn't realize there was a problem." Claire sighed dramatically. "We've been stretched thin, Jackson. It's not just the venue and the catering. It's the little things that add up. The dress, the flowers, the decorations, they all cost more than we anticipated. I hate to ask this, but could you consider withdrawing some funds from your trust fund to help cover these expenses?" Jackson's heart sank. The trust fund had always been a safety net for his future, a promise from his late mother to ensure he would have a secure path ahead. The idea of tapping into it for a wedding, especially one for Claire's daughter from her previous marriage, felt like a betrayal of that promise. "Claire, I'm not sure. That money is for my education and future. It's supposed to be there for me when I need it." Claire reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on his. "Jackson, I understand your concerns, but this wedding is a significant event for Emily. She's been through so much, and she deserves this. Besides, it's not just about her. It's about family. By helping out, you're showing that you care, that you're part of this family." Her words were persuasive, but Jackson felt a creeping unease. "I guess I can't deny it's important to you all, but if I take money out, won't that leave me in a tough spot?" Claire gave a soft, understanding smile. "I promise you, it will be worth it. We'll make sure to put everything back into the fund as soon as we can. And remember, this is a way to show your love and commitment to the family. Your mother would have wanted us to support each other." The mention of his mother stirred a pang of guilt and confusion within him. Claire's manipulation was becoming evident, but the emotional pull was strong. Jackson sighed, feeling the weight of his decision pressing heavily on his shoulders. "Okay, Claire, I'll do it," he said reluctantly, trying to mask his apprehension. "But I want everything to be documented clearly. I need to know how and when this money will be repaid." Claire's smile broadened, a hint of triumph flickering in her eyes. "Of course, darling. I'll have everything sorted out and documented for you. Thank you so much, Jackson. You're doing a wonderful thing." As Claire left the room, Jackson's unease lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, that the trust fund he'd always relied on might be slipping through his fingers. Chapter 2. The Crumbling Facade. The weeks leading up to Emily's wedding were a whirlwind of activity, with Claire's elaborate plans turning into a spectacle that dominated the household. The once serene home now buzzed with the hum of wedding preparations, floral arrangements, and the constant arrival of delivery trucks. Jackson found himself increasingly sidelined as Claire's focus remained fixed on the event, leaving him with a growing sense of dread. One evening, as Jackson was quietly studying in his room, Claire knocked gently on the door before entering, her smile as polished as ever. "Jackson, sweetheart, can we talk?" she asked, her tone overly cheerful. Jackson looked up from his textbook, forcing a smile. "Sure, Claire. What's up?" Claire sat down on the edge of his bed, her demeanor softening. "I wanted to thank you again for helping us with the wedding fund. It means so much to Emily and to me." Jackson shifted uncomfortably. "I hope it's going well. I mean, I've noticed a lot of changes around here." Claire's eyes sparkled with a mix of innocence and calculation. Oh, absolutely. Everything's coming together perfectly. But, I need to discuss something with you. What is it? Claire took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. I've been meaning to tell you that we're running into some unexpected expenses. You know how it is with these big events. There are always last-minute costs. I was hoping you wouldn't mind if we use a bit more from the trust fund. Jackson's heart sank. More? Claire, I thought we had agreed on a specific amount. I was under the impression that we documented everything. Claire waved her hand dismissively. Yes, of course, but unforeseen expenses have come up. It's just a small amount more, and it would really help us avoid cutting any corners. I promise it's for a good cause. The trust fund had already taken a substantial hit, and the idea of dipping further into it made Jackson uneasy. I really need to think about this. It's my future we're talking about. Claire placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but her grip firm. Jackson, I understand your concerns. This is just a temporary solution. Once the wedding is over, I'll make sure everything is adjusted properly. I'm counting on your support. All right, but I want a clear record of where the money is going and when it will be replenished. Claire's smile was unwavering. Absolutely. I'll make sure to provide you with all the documentation. Thank you, Jackson. You're truly a lifesaver. As the wedding day approached, Jackson noticed subtle changes in Claire's behavior. She seemed more aloof, and there were frequent deliveries of luxury items, designer shoes, high-end jewelry, and extravagant decorations. He tried to ignore his growing suspicions, but the mounting evidence was hard to ignore. One evening, after the wedding festivities had concluded, Jackson overheard a conversation between Claire and one of her friends while he was passing by the living room. He paused, his curiosity piqued. Honestly, I can't believe how well everything turned out, Claire said, her voice filled with satisfaction. The wedding was perfect, and I managed to get a few things for myself as well. Jackson's ears perked up at her words. A few things for yourself? Claire's friend chuckled. You deserve it, though. You've worked hard. Claire's laugh was light and carefree. It's true, but it's amazing how much you can accomplish when you have the right resources. Jackson's heart pounded as he pieced together the implications. He decided to take a closer look at the trust fund records, hoping to confirm his suspicions. Late into the night, Jackson sat in front of his laptop, sifting through the documents he had obtained. The numbers didn't add up. Large sums of money had been withdrawn, with no clear explanation. The entries for the wedding expenses seemed inflated, and there were significant withdrawals for personal luxuries. His phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, who had become an unexpected ally in his quest for answers. Ethan, hey, I'm worried. Have you found out anything more about the trust fund? Jackson typed back quickly. Jackson, yeah, I think Claire has been using the money for herself. I'm not sure how to confront her without causing a major rift. Ethan responded almost immediately. Ethan, my mom and I have been looking into this too. She thinks we might have a legal case if we gather more evidence. Let's talk soon. Jackson's mind raced. The realization that Claire was diverting the trust fund for her personal gain was a bitter pill to swallow. He knew he needed to act fast before the situation deteriorated further. His future, and perhaps even his relationship with his father, was at stake. The next day, Jackson gathered his resolve and approached Claire. Claire, we need to talk about the trust fund. Claire's face tightened, her earlier facade of warmth replaced by a defensive edge. What's wrong, Jackson? You know exactly what's wrong. I've seen the withdrawals and the lavish spending. The money meant for my future is being used for your personal luxuries. Claire's eyes widened, her expression a mix of surprise and anger. Jackson, you're being unreasonable. This was all for the family. No, this was for you. I'm taking this to my dad and getting legal advice. You're not getting away with this. The day after Jackson's confrontation with Claire, the atmosphere in the house was tense and strained. Jackson was barely able to focus on his schoolwork, his mind consumed with thoughts of the trust fund and his looming confrontation with his father. The once cozy home felt more like a pressure cooker with every interaction marred by an underlying tension. Claire, meanwhile, maintained her facade of calm and collectedness. She was busy putting the final touches on her own luxury purchases, seemingly unfazed by the storm brewing around her. She had managed to spin Jackson's confrontation into a narrative of ungratefulness, painting herself as a martyr for her stepson's well-being. Jackson's father, Robert, had been out of town on a business trip, and Jackson knew he had to confront him as soon as possible. He had scheduled a meeting with Ethan and his mom, Valerie, to discuss the next steps. Ethan's mom, a lawyer, had agreed to help Jackson navigate the legal intricacies of the situation. "All right, Jackson," Valerie said, adjusting her glasses. "We've gone through the trust fund records you provided. The withdrawals and expenditures are concerning. If Claire's actions are as you've described, we might have a case for misappropriation of funds." Jackson nodded, his expression grim. "I need to talk to my dad first. He needs to know what's happening." Valerie's eyes softened with understanding. "I suggest you gather as much evidence as possible before confronting anyone. We'll need to present a clear case if things escalate." That evening, Robert returned home, his face weary from travel. He dropped his suitcase by the door and looked around the house, sensing the tension that had been building. Claire greeted him with a forced cheerfulness, though her eyes betrayed her anxiety. "Welcome back, Robert. I've missed you." Robert nodded, giving her a distracted smile. "Thanks, Claire. It's good to be home. I need to talk to Jackson about something." Claire's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. "Of course, dear. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to see you." Jackson was waiting in his room, pacing anxiously as he heard his father approach. When Robert knocked and entered, Jackson steeled himself. "Hey, Dad," Jackson said, trying to sound casual. "Hey, son. Can we talk for a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" Robert sat down on the edge of the bed, his expression serious. "I heard there's been some tension with Claire about the trust fund. I wanted to understand what's going on." Jackson's heart raced. "Dad, I don't know how to put this lightly. Claire has been using the trust fund for her own expenses. She's been diverting the money meant for my future to pay for her personal luxuries and for Emily's wedding." Robert's face went pale. "What? That can't be right." "It's true," Jackson said, his voice rising with frustration. "I've seen the bank statements, and Claire's been spending the money on herself. She convinced me to release the funds, saying it was for an emergency, but now I see it was all a lie." Robert's eyes were filled with disbelief. "I had no idea. I've been so focused on work that I didn't notice what was happening here. Claire has been handling the finances." Jackson felt a surge of anger and hurt. "Dad, you need to understand. This money was meant for my education. It's everything my mom worked for. Claire's actions have left me with nothing." Robert stood up, his face lined with worry. "I'm so sorry, Jackson. I should have been more involved. I'll talk to Claire and get to the bottom of this." Before Robert could leave, Jackson stopped him. "Dad, I need to know. Did Claire involve you in this? Were you aware of what she was doing?" Robert shook his head, looking conflicted. "No, I wasn't involved. I trusted her to manage things. But that's no excuse. I'll confront her and make this right." As Robert left Jackson's room to find Claire, Jackson felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The confrontation was about to unfold, and he could only hope that his father's intervention would bring justice. Robert found Claire in the kitchen. His face was stern, his voice firm. "Claire, we need to talk about the trust fund." Claire turned, her expression masking a flicker of guilt. "What about it?" "I know what you've been doing," Robert said, his voice cutting through the air. "Jackson showed me the evidence. You've been using the money for yourself, not for the wedding or any emergencies." Claire's face flushed with a mix of anger and desperation. "Robert, I was trying to provide the best for Emily. I thought—" Robert interrupted, his voice rising. "You thought you could take advantage of the situation. That money was meant for Jackson's future, not for your personal luxuries. You've betrayed that trust." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but her expression was defiant. "I was only trying to do what was best for my family. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Robert shook his head, his disappointment evident. Your actions have consequences. You are going to fix this. Jackson's future needs to be secured, and you'll deal with the fallout. I will not allow you to pretend you did nothing wrong here. The sound of the moving truck's engine echoed through the quiet suburban street as it pulled up to the Larson residence. Jackson stood on the porch, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. The sight of the large truck, accompanied by the movers loading furniture and belongings under Claire's direction, felt like a slap in the face. It was as if Claire was completely indifferent to the chaos she was causing. Jackson's phone buzzed incessantly in his pocket. He pulled it out, his dad returning his call. "Dad, you need to get over here right now. Claire's drained the account, and now she's moving everything out of the house. It looks like she's trying to take everything." His father's voice was filled with alarm. "I'm on my way, Jackson. Don't let her take anything. I'll be there as soon as I can." Next, Jackson called Ethan. "Ethan, it's bad. Claire's moving trucks are here, and she's taking all the furniture. I need you and your mom to come over. We need to stop this." Ethan's concern was evident. "We're on our way. Just hang in there." Within minutes, Robert arrived, his face a mix of disbelief and frustration. Ethan and his mom, Valerie, followed closely behind. The tension was thick as they approached the moving truck, where Claire was directing the movers with an unsettling calmness. "What's going on here?" Robert demanded as he stepped up to Claire. "Robert, we need to talk about our relationship. Things aren't going well right now. We need some time apart. I'm taking some of my belongings with me." "You can't take this stuff," Robert argued. "I owned most of this furniture before we were married. And what's all this about the trust fund?" Claire's eyes narrowed. "We're married. We share everything. And as for the trust fund, you know I've been under a lot of stress." Robert's face turned red with anger. "Claire, you've drained Jackson's account. You're in big trouble. Get those movers out of my house. Now." The movers paused, looking uncertain. Robert's authority was clear, and he barked at them to stop. "Get out of my house. Don't touch a thing." Valerie stepped forward, her lawyer's demeanor sharp and commanding. "Return everything you've taken. This woman is using you to cover up her theft. I'm a lawyer and have already contacted the authorities. They should be here shortly." Claire's eyes widened in shock. "Who are you to interfere in my business?" "I'm Jackson's lawyer, and I'm here to ensure you pay for your criminal actions. When Ethan told me about the drained account after Robert confronted you, I contacted the district attorney's office. Stealing from a minor is a serious crime." Claire's face contorted with anger and panic. "You're just trying to make me look bad." "Claire," Valerie continued, "you're attempting to flee with stolen property. I promised Jackson that I won't let them go easy on you." The sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Claire's bravado faltered as she realized the gravity of her situation. The police arrived, their presence turning the scene from a family dispute into a formal investigation. Claire tried to argue, but her words fell flat as the authorities took control of the situation. They led her away in handcuffs, her protestations echoing through the air but falling on deaf ears. Jackson watched, a mixture of relief and sorrow washing over him. The once comforting familiarity of his home had been marred by deceit and betrayal. Robert, his face set in a grim line, placed a reassuring hand on Jackson's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Jackson. I should have been more vigilant. We'll make sure everything is set right. We'll get through this." Ethan stood beside Jackson, offering silent support. Valerie, after ensuring that the authorities had everything they needed, gave Jackson a sympathetic look. "You're going to be okay, Jackson. We'll work together to recover what's been taken. This isn't over, but you'll have your future back." As Claire was driven away, Jackson felt the weight of the ordeal beginning to lift. The immediate crisis had been addressed, but the emotional and financial scars would take time to heal. With Valerie's legal expertise and his father's support, Jackson hoped to rebuild his life and secure the future his mother had always dreamed for him. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, resilience, and justice, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a situation where someone close betrayed your trust? We'd love to hear your stories. Stay tuned for more dramatic narratives and life lessons.